Good day. Welcome back to H Hour. If you are stepping into this podcast to listen to Tom Martienssen speak, and you haven't listened to the Icebreaker, I would suggest you go back to the previous episode in your podcast app of H Hour, which is the H Hour Icebreaker with Tom, where Tom was asked questions which was submitted by H Hour subscribers, H Hour patrons. Before the podcast, they had a heads up that Tom was coming on. They get a heads up that about all future guests, and certain tiers of the subscribers get access to live streams with the guests. So while I am recording this interview with Tom, there are patrons watching the live stream, and they are able to submit questions if they wish for Tom during the podcast. You can become a patron at hughkeir.substack.com or at patreon.com/HK podcast. It supports the podcast, it supports me, and it actually gives you some power and influence over shaping H Hour and what it is and the future of it, especially now that the H Hour Impact DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, has kicked in and is available for patrons to become a member of at no extra cost. So please do that. Enough of that. On to the podcast. Mr. Martienssen, it is an absolute pleasure to have you back in the studio, and I genuinely mean that. Welcome back.
Thanks. It's good. It's good to...
I love you one-worders. No, I really do mean it. I remember, when I reference your podcast quite a lot to people when Raffridge comes up in conversation, or when Mert comes up in conversation, or when veteran filmmakers come up in conversation. And that first interview I did with you, that was September 2020. We did that.
It's wild. It's been 5 years
ago.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that episode. It was a very popular episode as well. And I highly recommend people go back and listen to that episode. That episode was pretty much learning about Tom's military career, really, and then his early filmmaking career, right? The early stages of his filmmaking career.
Yeah.
Fascinating episode. And your unique experiences in Afghanistan, doing what you did out there for the length of time you did. So highly recommend it. That is why I'm glad to have you back, mate. And cool. I actually quite like you as an indivital. Well
Thanks.
done, you.
One of the few.
Not one of the few. Well, yeah, one of the few. Yeah, one of the few. Yeah.
No.
I got the character judgment right, I think.
Yeah, I've confused myself there, but let's just brush past that.
Right. Okay, so can I ask you about the Taliban filming a little bit? I know there's bits of it you can't discuss, right? But would it be correct for me to say that you have been invited by the Taliban to go to Afghanistan and do some filming with them?
Yeah, it's been so the Taliban has kind of split into multiple different kind of groups almost. So there's like the Kandahari Taliban, who are obviously based in Kandahar, and the kind of, the more like hardcore fundamentalist believers, I'm going to say. So
the Kandahari Taliban, huh?
Yeah. So they're like the official kind of ruling group in charge of Afghanistan, and then in the north there's the Haqqanis, who were the Haqqani network during the war, and they now control significant parts of the government and are based in Kabul. So I'm basically talking to them to go and make a film in Afghanistan.
You're talking to the Haqqanis and the Kandaharis.
So through the Haqqanis, it's like the connection with everybody, the media. So there's a media committee, and my proposal was going through the media committee, but I was invited to submit to the media committee for them to approve my plan. And so far it's been looked at very favorably. But it would be, so I don't want to talk about it too much in depth, because it'll
Don't
be
don't
yeah,
compromise things.
yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be a long process, and I don't want, they go to great lengths to learn about the people that are coming and filming there, understandably, because there's a lot of negative press, and they want to show Afghanistan in a new light, and so have to be, a little careful there so that they don't, think I'm trying to do something else when actually I just want to tell their story.
What's your intent? What are you hoping to achieve?
I want to, it's a very rare thing. It's a very rare thing to get the opportunity to tell a story from that perspective. And I think
That perspective being what perspective?
from in this case, the Taliban's perspective, but more generally from the perspective of an insurgency who defeated is a generalization. I don't think that's really like
Okay.
appropriate, but we I want to tell the story of the war from their perspective, essentially,
Ooh,
or from both perspectives, but I want to give them an opportunity to
that is going to be interesting.
yeah
That is going to be interesting.
yeah
I will watch that.
yeah
I will watch that.
and it's I don't I don't think it's
That could be
really
really uncomfortable watching for some people.
yeah
A lot of people.
yeah yeah I
Could
mean it
involve a
might
few home truths.
yeah, but I mean I was I was on the top of a hill in Kabul, got talking to this on the last trip where I was there a month ago, just getting B-roll. Got talking to this guy, really, really nice guy, but all the Taliban fighters they're really nice until they're shooting at you. And I got talking to him. He was like invited me in for tea. We were just having a chat, and he turned out to be a Helmandi bomb maker. And he, his expertise was making IEDs, but making them with no metal. So that was like the exact
Oh God.
that was the exact thing that we were dealing with. But for me, there's no like animosity. There's no, all of those feelings of, maybe it's through the therapy for PTSD or whatever, but all those feelings have gone. I don't resent them in any way. I completely understand their perspective. We would do the same if someone had like invaded the UK. Very different circumstances, but just if you simplify it right down to the basics, um, I can understand, empathize, and not look at them as an adversary. I now look at them as just an interesting group of people that I really want to. I want to know what makes them tick, why they were like how they won, how they were so resilient. I want to know everything. Basically, I'm intrigued rather than like what's the word? Intrigued rather than angry, I suppose.
Mm.
Because we
Well,
lost
they're pretty resilient people, right?
sorry
If they're a pretty resilient people, and you can go and reference, as many people do many times, all of the times Afghanistan has tried to be invaded by people, and all of the times they've resisted. It's never been apparently never been successfully invaded, right?
no
But the most the most recent one before the US and UK went in. Uh, the most recent one that's well documented is obviously the Soviet invasion. Super well documented. Have you read The Bear Went Over the Mountain?
I haven't read that one. I've read quite a few books
The-
about it,
oh, well,
but
the only one I've read. Oh no, I've read a couple of books years ago about the Mujahideen. But they were oriented around like CIA and mercenaries and stuff like that. Interesting books.
yeah,
But the Bear Went Over the Mountain. Do you know the book? Do you know of the book?
I've heard of the title,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I've not read it.
It's basically a teaching manual, a pamphlet, if you want to call it that, of interviews um, with Russian military commanders at varying levels, like after action reviews,
Yeah.
where about even after the war, where they'll take they'll basically document them in it. It'll be like as I recall, I haven't read it. The last time I read it was just before we went to Afghanistan the first time, so I would have read it about 2005-ish. And it'll be like, okay, such and such unit of such and such strength and type, Russian unit, was at this location, and they had this mission to go and do X, Y, or Z thing. Sometimes it's just a patrol. Sometimes it's an offensive operation. Sometimes it's like a resupply, and then it will talk through the what happened during the mission, and then it'll be like an after action review. The commander will give, okay, this is why that happened. Normally, it's about things that went pear shaped, real bad.
Yeah.
So it's a whole, it's a real insight into how the Russians went about things, how the Mujahideen went about things, and why things went pear shaped. And what, the Russians were there for 8 years, I think they were. Was it 8 years? 79 to 88? 9 years.
Yeah.
I think it was 79 to 88.
Yeah, and there was some like political involvement before that, wasn't there? But
Yeah.
like, I think in terms of
yeah, and they were there en masse. Now, the Russians, the Soviet Russian military weren't superb, right? But they did have training, formal training, armor, air, weaponry, people to throw into it, and still couldn't do it. And the Afghans still came out on top. And it wasn't just through a war of attrition. It was through, developing their own sort of guerrilla warfare tactics there. Obviously, with the help of Western allies, Western influence, who didn't want the Russians to take power in Afghanistan. But the Afghans are extremely resilient people and pretty good when it comes to fighting.
Yeah, they're also very patient. And one of the things I've learned from talking to a couple of them recently was, whilst we were carrying, or not, I mean, I did a bit of this, but like, the likes of you were carrying tons of weight, patrolling, like probably not very far, but like very heavy, to get from one place to another, trying to kind of outmaneuver them and beat them. They were having lunch.
Yeah,
they were like,
it's a great
chilling.
point. One of the frustrating. So it's a great point on that, and I've talked about that at length.
Can't beat that.
As the campaign went on, we literally got heavier and heavier and heavier and more restricted in terms of movement, like as an individual able to do, because of the amount of kit we had to carry. When I went on that first, we'll call it a war fighting stance footing, that Herrick 4 in 2006, it wasn't like that. And we knew very early on that point was a problem. If we went in with loads of kit, when I say went in, we went into an area on offensive operation or anything, or defensive anything, especially on an offensive mission. If we weren't in heavy, we weren't going to be able to outmaneuver these guys. I mean, for a bunch of different reasons. One, they knew the areas much better than we did, like the layout of a town, for example, or a village. But also, they knock about in dish dashes and flip flops with a slung AK and a couple of mags, bandoliers on them, because they can just blend back in. And so we would routinely, after we realized this, we would routinely bin body armor. We'd cache it. We'd get off the helis or however we were getting in. We would cache our body armor somewhere, just go in with it, ditch it. And then go in on the mission, on the attack, without body armor, with basically light scales, which brings about an increased level of risk, in that, okay, more susceptible to shrapnel, because the body armor at the time, we had the plates in, but the body armor would just, keep your guts in, and it would stop, as would stop ballistic penetration over your heart and a section on your back, because those little plates. But the reward of not wearing it and the maneuverability outweighed the risk. You could move faster, you could move better, which meant you were less likely to get hit. Now, as time went on, as you well know, and the public support and the public outrage, the public support for the campaign and the public outrage at the number of injuries and the number of deaths that were occurring, meant that politically they had to do more to lessen the injuries. by putting more, to try and lessen injuries by putting more protective equipment on people. Now, I would argue that there is a high likelihood that putting more kit and equipment on soldiers on the ground there actually resulted in more injuries and more deaths than there would have been if he hadn't have done that. Can that be proven? No, we can't run a separate.
Yeah.
We couldn't. You'd literally have to have a separate universe doing exactly the same campaign, but in a world where the decision of how much protective equipment you wear is left at the commander's level or the soldier's individual level. We can't do that. But I would suggest that it's highly likely that we would have had less injuries. You know.
I mean, when you look at like how effective normal infantry were compared to how effective like top end special forces were, I think like if you were to, I don't know, statistically put the amount of training and make that like that special forces receive, you make that one number, and then all of the training that normal standard infantry receive and make that another number, I think SF were punching above their weight because of their maneuverability and their intelligence and the fact that they were just landing somewhere light, doing whatever they were doing, leaving again. And whilst obviously Afghanistan, you can't, or any conflict, you couldn't win by doing that. But I think that sort of goes to prove that if you're fast and fit and light, you can, be better. But I don't know. I'm going to find it really fascinating learning about all this stuff, because from just the first conversation I had with this bomb maker, I left that conversation like fascinated. I just wanted to. I could have talked to him for a week. So I think when we get into like some of the other people that we're planning on speaking to and meeting, I think it's just going to get more and more interesting and more, deep. And my idea is to find commanders who were involved in certain situations across the country, and then really get into the weeds of what was happening on both sides. So yeah,
I wonder if the public here actually consciously consider it a loss. As in they think, yeah, we lost that one. I don't think they do. I think it's kind of the same as when, like the public opinion. I think it's kind of the same as when America left Vietnam. Where obviously the government's not going to say, "Oh shit, we lost." Exactly the same way the British government and the American government this time, they go, "Oh shit, we lost." It's like, "Oh, we decided to draw down and pull out. This is what we agreed, and we pull out, and then obviously we do lose it, and everything gets reversed." I wonder if that's the case, because it was a loss, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, from my perspective and the way I look at it, is we abandoned a lot of good people, and that was the loss. I think, there should have been. I mean, maybe the Taliban shouldn't have been removed from power at all, but at the time in the early 2000s, it made sense. Now, on reflection, don't know if it really does. That's one thing. I think like abandoning the country in the way that we did, that's another thing.
Did it make sense? Did it make sense?
I mean, they had to side with someone, and they just happened to side with someone that didn't like the Taliban. I mean,
you had to side.
Well, I think. I mean,
serving military had to side.
Firstly, I feel like I would want to do a PhD in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2004 to speak about this with like real conviction. But from my understanding of it, there should have been like, we should have gone with diplomacy first. We gave deadlines to the Taliban that like NATO broke, or the US. I don't know if it was a NATO operation at that point or if it was just US, but the US broke the deadlines they'd given to the government to make certain decisions to prevent full scale kind of overthrowing of the government. And I think, just when you look at the speed the Taliban took over after the country was abandoned and how the Afghan National Army were really getting hammered before they even left, it's pretty clear that the Taliban would, not just the Taliban, but like the collection of different groups that build into the Taliban as a collective, it's pretty clear that they were not defeated and they were still there. They were waiting, being patient, biding their time. And the second there was an opportunity in a vacuum,
This
they left.
Insurgency 101, right?
Yeah. What I will say though is Karzai is incredible. He still lives in Kabul. He still lives like, yeah.
Really?
He still lives in Kabul.
That's a bold move.
Yeah. And
Having said that, if that's the case, right, and he feels safe enough to live in Kabul, what does that say about his position when he was apparently sided with us during that campaign?
well, he is. I mean, I'm just gonna say kind of.
Well, because we already know some of the connections that his family has.
Yeah, I
had,
mean, yeah.
you know?
But I also
Ew.
think, he did push to have big impacts militarily. But I will say that it is an example of the Taliban being serious about their, when they said everyone is forgiven, he's a good example of how serious they were about that, because they could go to him any day and make an example of him, but they won't. And I do, there's friends of mine who I know worked with the coalition who are able to have jobs.
They were like
Work-
Turks, or interpreters, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're able to hold down jobs. They live as good a life as you can in Kabul at the moment. And yeah, so I do think from what I've seen, I mean, all I can say is the last trip I went on was the safest trip I've had to Afghanistan by far. It's the danger is now down to the government and particularly the police and the intelligence force called the GDI. They're quite paranoid, and probably rightly so, about people being there to commit, spying or espionage or whatever. So they're pretty worried about that side of things. So that's now the danger. But the bombs and bullets and suicide bombers, that's gone away. There's truly was the safest trip I've ever had to Afghanistan.
Hmm.
So, take that for
Looking forward to
what
going
it's
back
worth.
then.
Sorry?
Looking forward to going back then.
Yeah.
You never know, there might be a holiday resort there at some point in the future,
I think, yeah, I mean, we were in Bamyan and filming all these different forts that was like, the route that Genghis Khan went through, and, the fort where Genghis Khan's nephew was killed trying to take, and where Genghis came back and, basically murdered everybody. There's so much history there, and because it hasn't been kind of modernized or westernized, it's still there to see. And I think, if I was to ever start a YouTube channel, the first thing I would do is get a motorbike and some small cameras and drive from fort to fort and tell the history of the Silk Road through Afghanistan, because it's just so much there. It's incredible.
You've got a YouTube channel though, surely.
I mean, I have, but I haven't put anything on it in about 10 years.
You're a filmmaker, Tom.
I know,
what do you mean?
I mean, yeah, I was, funnily enough, a handyman. Was installing something in my house yesterday. I've just moved into a new place. He was installing something, and he'd started a YouTube channel making AI films, and he's already monetized. And I was thinking, like, fuck, I should. Yeah,
Even just a personal, the life of a filmmaker, from ex-military filmmaker in these places, just a little blog here and there, tips and advice. These things are going to become more valuable because of the AI. I think I think it's going to be the real people doing real things that are going to go more and more valuable and more sought after.
I think
Honestly.
what I need to do though is like at the moment I'm such a perfectionist that I would find it difficult to just like record myself talking and then put it on YouTube. I'd find that really hard because like the last film we finished, it took, I want to talk about properly. That took five years. Basically, I was starting when we last spoke.
There's a difference between making and publishing something like that, though, right? And making and publishing, I'm going to use the word vlog here, right? Even though it's about 10 years outdated, right? But but making and publishing a vlog about not hypothetically, about being a filmmaker, right? I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying do it. I'm just as an example, we should do it, but and that is that and this is a deliberate move actually I did with H Hour, okay? And it's if from the start you manage people's expectations, right?
Okay,
And it can only
yeah.
get better, and that is okay. This is not this is not a polished professional product from let's think H Hour from a presenter point of view. I swear, and I don't. And I put my foot in my mouth sometimes, and the guest does, and you get it warts and all. But the video quality will be good, and the audio quality will be good. So that's fine.
Yeah.
If you set it up like that, then there's not a drama. It's for manage people's expectations. And the good thing about those things is, if you did that stuff, I would watch it, right? Because the good thing is about that is, it's like you also, when it's unpolished, you get to see the actual person. You get to see actually what they're like, the real life mannerisms, the way they talk, the way they think, especially when they're thinking on the spot. You stick a camera on a gimbal, you hold it up in front of yourself, and you start talking. You go, sort of, they doing X, Y, Z, and we had these problems, that problems. If you think about other budding filmmakers, how valuable that would be to them. Gold dust, mate. Gold dust.
I still think of myself as a budding filmmaker, though. That's the problem. I'm still
but you're less budding than others. There's always someone who's a crow to you. There's always someone who's junior to you, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's always someone who's more senior than you. There's always someone who's more junior than you.
Yeah.
Unless, for example, you're David Attenborough. There's no one more senior than David Attenborough.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue he's more senior than the king.
But I would suggest doing it, additional revenue stream, and it would actually absolutely provide value to people.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Why not?
you're like the third person in 3 days to say that. So
Really,
yeah,
do it, mate.
all right. Okay.
You articulate yourself well. Like this is on the fly here, right? We've got no script here. We're not talking about anything. You're talking your thoughts and things as you spit them out. And I obviously asked you back because the first one went well, and I'd interview you again and again and again and again. So you can do it. You're just not confident.
Come for the coffee.
Yeah. So yeah, do it, mate. Do it.
Yeah.
And you got the kit.
Yeah.
And you got the time.
I don't know about I mean, I have the time at the moment because I'm finished one film, starting a new one.
But do it when you film it.
I have to say, like, if we had installed a camera on the camera car when me and James were trying to like chase Kenya Wildlife Service around the country, like that would have been good content.
For next time.
Yeah.
For next time. Yeah. Tell me about the black rhino, man. I mean, black rhinos, white rhinos, I know that both of them exist. Rhinos are protected. I know very little else about rhinos. And when you were mentioning the icebreaker about like this moment that you captured that no one else has ever captured on film, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. Talk to me. How did this come about? Why rhinos?
So I'll start kind of from the beginning, as I think we've got time. So I went to Kenya 7 years ago on the invitation from a charity called For Rangers, and they do really good.
Forensi?
For Rangers.
Oh, For Rangers. I'm deaf as a post. Sorry, God. Right. And there's aircon is in you.
So they do.
For Rangers, yeah.
They do one of the big things they do is like training rangers. They provide life insurance for rangers, and gym equipment and all that sort of stuff for them. Like, and all the small things you don't really think about that makes a massive difference. So socks, boots, uniforms that aren't like made from the fabric from the 1950s, like, you know, just the kind of basic stuff that you need to function properly as a soldier or ranger. So I got invited to Kenya from them, realized there was a very positive story happening in Kenya with rhinos, where the black rhino is critically endangered, but in Kenya it's rebounding. The population's increasing in black rhinos and white rhinos, and I think in the last 5 years they've had like 2 or 3 rhinos die from poaching.
And I assume that it was declining because of the poaching industry, right? The illegal poaching industry, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're going right back to basics, rhinos are critically endangered because, for a start, they were hunted. Their horn is very desirable for dagger handles in Yemen, and more recently as a kind of aphrodisiac if it's ground into a powder in China and Vietnam. It's like a status symbol, and it's supposed to ward off hangovers. So if
Medieval,
you,
isn't it?
yeah, if you
Medieval.
mix it into your drink before you go on a heavy session, you wake up with no hangover.
Is there any scientific basis?
If there is science, but no, basically. But it's creatine, so it's the same as your fingernails. So if you just saved up your fingernails and ground them into a powder and had that to drink before you went on a session, then it would have the same effect, basically. So,
which is 0.
Yeah, feel free to give that a go.
Okay.
It's probably less appealing. So in South Africa and Mozambique, South Africa has by far the biggest rhino population. They have a massive poaching problem. Rhino numbers, I believe, overall are declining in South Africa, but in other places they're going up. In South Africa, they're having to do things like cut the horns off rhinos, dehorning.
I've seen that, as a preventative measure. But that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but the problem with that is you're messing with their evolution, basically, their natural selection, because
they have a horn for a reason.
Yeah, they have a horn to fight, and if you chop the horns off everybody, then it's like no rhino having an advantage, and all of a sudden you've got weird breeding happening. Whereas what we saw and what we documented in Kenya is that you could pretty much put size of horn and success in mating. Ironically,
so the bigger the horn,
the more successful they're gonna be.
So there's better genetics, basically, is an indicator. Okay, and if you cut the horn off, then females are less likely to mate with higher quality genetics.
The males won't. When they fight, they might not. The right one might not come out on top.
That's what I mean. So the females will end up mating with the genetically inferior just by chance, because that makes sense.
So that's really kind of there'll be like, if there's any evolutionary scientists listening to this, they'll be like, I don't know.
It makes total sense. I've actually done quite a bit of reading on say quite a bit of reading about humans on basically laws of attraction and why we're attracted to different things, and the link between attraction and genetic strength. I'll put it like that.
Yeah,
but it's the same laws apply to animals. They're just very complex with humans.
And if you look at the way rhinos work and what so all of this knowledge is passed on from the rangers, and we'll get on to talking about them, because they deserve this entire podcast session, let alone the bit that they'll get. So all this knowledge comes from them, but basically what happens is a male rhino, black or white, will have their territory. And the difference between black and white rhinos has nothing to do with the color, by the way. It's old Afrikaans language that got translated badly.
So what is the difference?
To do with what they eat primarily. So white rhinos are bigger. They have a mouth like a hoover. They graze and they eat grass, and they're predominantly like herd animals. But what you have is you always have a male that's dominant, and that dominant male will have a territory, and then the herd will exist in his territory. With black rhinos, they're solitary, but they operate in a similar kind of way. But they're a little bit smaller, much more angry, much more isolated. They browse, so that means that they eat shrubs and leaves and like thorns and things like that.
So what's the easiest way to visually identify them? Just the size and the behavior.
So their lips are the easiest way. So the black rhino has like a beak, and the white rhino has like a flat mouth. But when you spend enough time with them and you look at the differences, you can see the difference from a couple of 100 meters away. White rhinos have like a curved back because they're obviously, the head is on the ground. They're eating a lot. Black rhinos, they're much more upright. So
So a white
different
rhino
body
has a
shape
back
and
like
things.
a horse would have, like arched, like a horse is ridden.
More like a cow. So
Okay, yeah.
like a neck that's kind of dipped
Yeah.
down because their head is down most of the time. Whereas black rhinos, their heads are much
Why are they
straighter.
evolved differently? Do you know?
I mean, I can only guess it's down to territory and just like splitting off between which one eats this and which eats that. But
so you rarely find white and black rhinos in the same location.
No, so this is the thing. They're all together. But white rhinos will exist in open spaces, and black rhinos exist in bushes and trees and shrubs, which is why it's so much more difficult to film them. They have black rhinos are very reactive, so they have terrible eyesight, but their hearing is amazing and their sense of smell is amazing.
How bad is their eyesight? How are we talking?
They can, if you're moving, they'll see you. If you're wearing like a bright color or high contrast color, they'll see you. But if you stand still, they're not gonna know you're there. So, but if they can smell you, then they'll know exactly where you are. So as long as you stay on the right side of the wind of them, then you're good. But if you're on the wrong side of the wind, you are definitely not good.
And what's their defense if they? So I'm assuming you. Well, I know you had some up close and personal encounters. So if they were to smell you, is their immediate instinct to fight or flight?
Black rhinos, their immediate instinct is always to fight. Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I'd say like you've got. It depends on the rhino because you learn the personalities of certain rhinos. But I'd say 4 in 5 times they're running at you, and 1 in 5 they're running away.
And do they give any visual or like audible indication that they're about to charge?
Yes, but sometimes that happens very quickly.
Go on, what do they do?
In less than a second.
So in my head, I've got stomp the feet, snort a lot.
Yeah, so one if they think there's something there, they'll stop and they'll stare at it, and so stopping eating is the first sign. If they're eating, you're good.
They're constantly grazing throughout the day, I take it.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless they're like on a mission to mate, fight, or like
fight
on
or fuck.
patrol.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much always eating. So if they're eating, you're good. As soon as they stop and look at you, you're not good anymore. And they'll just stare because they'll know that something's there, but they don't know if you're on the right side of the wind and they catch your movement or you make a noise, they'll stop, look at you, and they know something's there, but they don't know quite where. So then they'll wait to see if there's movement. And if you stand still for long enough, they'll go back to eating.
Have you had the situation?
Oh, yeah. On like, no, like honestly, probably a couple of 100 times with the Rangers.
What distance? What's the closest that's happened?
I mean, the closest that has happened was 5 meters.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
How fast do these things move?
A lot faster than you think. It's,
You got any
yeah.
idea what miles per hour?
like I was in,
Google it.
at one point we got chased in the car and I was in third by the time we got away from it.
Oh my God. I'm going to Google it.
Yeah.
What is the speed of a black rhino? Come on. 34 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about
That's
right.
full tilt.
Yeah.
That's most people's sprint, right?
Yeah, it's like getting stuck in a rip. You don't try and swim back to shore. You
Oh my
just
God.
go across and hope that they miss you.
Oh my God.
I was with Kiloku, who's the main character of the film, and we were
Kiloku.
Kiloku.
Kiloku. Okay.
Yeah. He has an Instagram page worth following. He's a really, really nice guy. Just an absolutely epic.
Oh, I thought it was the rhino.
No, so he's the ranger.
Oh, right. I thought
Yeah.
it was the rhino. Right,
Yeah.
right.
So he, the Rhino has an Instagram page. We should start that actually. But so Kiloku, he's one of the best trackers in Kenya.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just amazing. So we were filming a injured white rhino, and injured white rhinos can be as bad as black rhinos. And we were maybe 10 meters away from the thing, and Kiloku took his bag off his back. We were both crouching down. I had the camera on my shoulder filming him, and he took his bag off his back.
Which way is the rhino facing at the minute?
So the rhino's staring at us.
Yeah.
It's staring at us. It's grumpy. It's doing all the things that you don't want it to do.
Why did he take his bag off?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. So he took his bag off and got his laptop out, and I was like, by this point, I've been filming them for a year, so I kind of knew this wasn't a great situation to be in. I was like, is he going to be sending emails
an email
or
to send
something?
me, yeah.
And it turns out he leant his laptop against the tree and held his bag. And afterwards, I asked him, and he was like, it was about to chase us, so I was going to throw the bag this way so we could run that way. So he's taking his laptop out so he could sacrifice the bag.
My God.
But at the time, I was like, I'm maybe I've misread the situation, but this is probably not emails.
Greatest move.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the weight on them. So the weight on them, the sort of black rhino can reach, well, average weight is between 700 and 1,400 kilos.
Yeah.
34 miles an hour.
Yeah.
1,400 kilos, full tilt at you. And then a white rhino, oh my God. The white rhino is between 1,800 kilos and 2,500 kilos.
Yeah.
That is bonkers, isn't it?
And
that is bonkers.
If they get the car, they'll lift it off the ground.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the horn will get, I mean, the horns can be, depends on how, they could be up to 3 feet in length for a really dominant male. And they sharpen them for fighting. So they sharpen them on rocks, and they'll put the horn straight through a car door. No dramas.
That is unbelievable.
There's a Land Rover with a big hole in its door on Barana where we were filming. Yeah. So you have to be, careful.
And you decided to film these creatures.
And you have to do it on foot because as soon as they hear a vehicle, they freak out. They'll chase the car every time. So you have to, with black rhinos, you have to film them on foot. So when we filmed the black rhino birth, we were on foot the whole time.
What was this rhino called? The one you filmed called?
So the one that gave birth was Rensuans.
Was
Rensuans?
Rensuans.
Yeah.
Rensuans.
Yeah. So basically what a lot of the conservancies do, because the conservation generally doesn't have enough money. So they, as rhinos get born, you can pay $10,000 and name a rhino. You can name it whatever you want. So there's Linda, Lou, Rocky. These are just a few of the rhinos we were filming.
So how did you settle on Rensuans then? As in to follow?
So we knew we wanted to film a black rhino birth because never been filmed before.
That was the objective of going out there.
Yeah, or not. So the objective was to tell the whole film, but we knew that that was going to be a significant part of the film, because Kenya's problem um, is ironically overpopulation of rhinos. So Kenya is desperately trying to find more space and open more secure areas and open conservancies that and national parks that connect to one another to free up space. Because at the moment, rhinos, black rhinos, white rhinos are, because they're herd animals, you can fit them in a much tighter space. But black rhinos need tons and tons of space, and they have. Kenya's major problem with rhinos right now is that black rhinos are fighting each other and killing each other over territory. So they're trying to build,
because there's not enough. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So they're trying to build new space. South Africa and other places where poaching's rife, the main problem is people killing them. So yeah, we knew we wanted to film a birth because that's like the best example of successful conservation is when animals are reproducing. And there were three pregnant black rhinos. We had rangers following them. So the rangers in Kenya, one of the reasons they're so successful is that they find every rhino every day and mark its location and its behavior and its condition, so that over time they can see exactly how they're doing and like know the social structure and who's
in Kenya,
fighting
the
who.
Kenyan rangers do that.
Yeah.
Every single. How many rhinos are there?
So on the place that we were filming, so between Barana and Lewa, because it's like they're two places, but there's no real fence between them. The rhinos can go backwards and forwards. I think there's 140, but we
And the
should
rangers go every
check
day
that
and
number.
find each one of them.
Yeah,
And just track and record.
every rhino every day. Yeah.
Wow.
This
that
is why
a task. Why on a daily basis?
Because if you're dealing with poaching, what will happen is they'll kill the animal, cache the horn, and wait a few days, and then come back and get it. Because obviously, if a gunshot is heard on a conservancy, the alarm gets raised, and all of the ways in and out are watched immediately.
Oh, okay.
So you want to, dispose of the thing, the horn or tusks if you're an elephant poacher, and leave it. Yeah, store it.
So then you'll come out all normal as if innocent. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard the bang too. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, and then you come back and get it later.
Good.
So if you find every rhino every day, if one disappears, then it gives you the best opportunity possible to stop it before. Yeah. And obviously they're so critically endangered and they need to be really well looked after, because otherwise we won't have rhinos pretty soon. So yeah, and that's one of the major reasons they're so successful. So we had the 3 pregnant females, the rangers were watching them, and basically we were just on standby, and we go and find them and film as much as we could with them to try and build a story around that rhino. We missed the first 2, and then the third one we got a call, and the call was literally like, Rensuins is acting weird, do you want to come and film? And we were like, obviously yes. So we jumped in the car, drove like Colin McRae across the conservancy, met up with Kaloku, and then we basically tracked Rensuins. And every time she stopped, we'd set the camera up, film, and we filmed everything from waters breaking, chasing off her older calf, all the way down to her like giving birth, and then the new calf standing up for the first time. Yeah.
And this has never been done before.
No.
How many? But it must have been tried dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah,
there must have been attempts, right?
So I spoke to a few natural history filmmakers and scientists before we started filming with rhinos, and they said they're boring, they're bad tempered, and they're boring. But I'd completely disagree with that. I think people just haven't studied them enough, and they haven't spent enough time with them.
What does Attenborough say about them?
I mean, he loves all things, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All things but pollution.
But pollution, yeah.
And
Um, that is surprising.
yeah,
Boring and
and they've filmed, recently they filmed some. I mean, so much of their um,
they don't sound
life.
boring to me.
No, no,
They sound pretty wild.
they. I would agree. Yeah, I mean, it's wild filming them. There's
It sounds to
been
me more like these
it,
people are afraid of doing a bit of extra effort and putting in the groundwork and lots of time on the ground with very little reward and very little chance of getting this kind
it.
of information,
Yeah,
and just making up excuses like they're boring. No.
it is it's extremely difficult because
Yeah.
you have to do it on foot.
Most
You
people aren't cut out for that. How many miles are you covering a day when you're doing that?
depends like who we're with, but if we're following the tracking teams, 30-40 kilometers. If we're looking for a specific rhino, we'd cover between, on average, like 10, 15 or 20 if it's like a long day.
And it's not not the most comfortable of climates, Kenya, is it?
No, it's pretty warm and it's high altitude, and like I thought the LMG was heavy when I was carrying that. I was wrong.
Yeah, goodness me. What was that? So from the moment you actually got eyes on Rensuins
Yeah,
to the moment that she gave birth, how long was that period?
probably 7 hours, I'd say.
So you just didn't leave.
No,
You were there. Was that through the night?
no. So we caught her 10 a.m. and I think she gave birth around 3 or 4 p.m. And then we stayed when she with the calf and got as once we knew that she didn't know we were there and we could very slowly get closer and closer. We then got the camera into a place where we finished probably 5 to 7 meters away, and that's where we filmed the calf standing up. So there was just me and Kaloku. James was recording the sound from a bit further back, and James, by the way, has been my partner in crime the whole way through. Both of us like rough edge. So he was further back getting the sound, and I was sitting with Kaloku the ranger, and when we saw the calf standing up, it was like, I don't know, mind blowing. It really was that moment where I was like, holy shit, I'm shooting with the best equipment in the world on a film that I found the financing for single-handed, and we are filming something that has never been filmed before in a very special part of a very special country. It was
That is
pretty
amazing.
amazing moment.
That is amazing. There's not many of those feats left to achieve, is there? And especially in this day and
No,
age where it's so easy to go out and just shoot your own stuff, and travel's so easy, and
yeah,
financing can be very easy for people, and access to kit and equipment.
yeah,
But
it's so accessible. Like you
yeah,
can,
yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. That is something else. Did you have an inkling that she was, obviously apart from the size of her, that she was ready to pop any day? How long was their gestation period?
I think it's around 15
Is that the
months.
right term? Gestation period?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
15
between
months.
15 and 18 months. I think. Let me double. That's something I want to be right on.
Well, 15 or 18 months, knocking about. Well, at least they've got 4 legs.
Yeah,
Women are 9 months,
yeah.
2 legs.
15 to
Rhinos
16
are
months.
15 to 18 months, 4 legs. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's get way up the 2 way. Yeah. All right. So did you have an inkling she was ready to pop?
Yeah, because the rhino, because the rangers follow them so closely, and know, Rensuins has been hanging around with this male for quite a while. With black rhinos, because they're solitary, when a male and female come together, there's only one real reason why. So we had a pretty good idea that it was. Well, we had a window. Like these 3 rhinos were all within a 6-month window.
Oh.
So we kind of knew she was ready to give birth, but we didn't know, like, it could have been any time in that 6-month window.
And they give birth standing up, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, when they so they walk around a lot, which is new, and people have obviously filmed black rhinos giving birth in captivity, but obviously in captivity they put them into a concrete box where they're safe with cameras and zookeepers and vets standing by ready to go. But that's not how they give birth naturally in the wild. In the wild, they walk from hiding place to hiding place. She covered probably 5 to 6 kilometers in labor. And then when
While she was in labor.
yeah,
So over that 6 to 7 hours,
yeah,
she covered 5 to 6 kilometers.
yeah,
And when she was going firm each time, I take
yeah,
it she would stop. Then you would set up. Oh, I'm making assumptions here. Then you would set up your kit,
yeah,
audio, video. And
yeah,
that's after stalking into a position.
yeah,
Set that up.
yeah,
Hope she's going to pop there, and then no, and she would stand up and start cutting about again. You go, oh, God damn it!
yeah.
Is that the way it went?
That's exactly how it went. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is hard work. That is hard work.
Yeah, but because we were so close to getting it, it was just like constant stress of like, like we set up and then she goes behind the shrub and you're like, shit, is she about to give birth? And we can't see her. So then we're like moving, but you have to be completely silent and stay the right side of the wind. And because we're in a valley, it's like, it was, yeah.
Did you have food and water and supplies with you?
And we had, so the whole time we were kind of pretty ready because you we never knew how long we were going to be filming for. So we just had a car. Later we had like a proper filming camera car, but at this point we just had a Defender with everything in. So we had, funnily enough, Resilient Nutrition, who's another veteran setup company.
Huh.
They gave us a bunch of stuff, and they do like nut butter.
I've not heard of
kind
it.
of stuff.
Resilient nutrition. Okay, yeah, go on.
So it's just like it's like the energy gels but made from nuts. So they feel like a proper meal. So we were kind of surviving on those for a lot of it.
Resilient Nutrition is a company focused on creating functional foods and supplements designed to enhance physical and mental performance with a particular emphasis on resilience. They offer products like long range fuel and calm formulas, which utilize ingredients like nut butters, KSM 66 ashwagandha, and L-theanine to support sustained energy focus and recovery. The company also emphasizes sustainable practices and aligns its values with those of ultra endurance events. Sounds perfect for what you were doing.
Yeah.
A veteran owned, you say?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So James shot a lot of their stuff and knows them pretty closely. So they looked after
And
us.
they gave you that for free?
I don't know if it was for free.
Well, let's say it did. Well,
they gave some stuff for free. And
there we go. That's good.
I think when we realized how good it was, we then bought a load. Yeah. So we had those like sitting in the car ready to go. Also, where we were working were super remote. So if sometimes you'd be like on the conservancy and it's all good. There's like a lodge, and we were living with the rangers on the conservancy, so that was pretty easy. But sometimes, like we filmed. One of the things I really like to do is get both sides of the story, and the rangers, they, even though poaching is way down, they're dealing a lot with banditry and cattle theft. And the way the rangers have been so successful in Kenya is by looking after the communities, and the communities are suffering quite badly with cattle theft and armed conflict from bandits. And
bandits doing what? Thieving?
Yeah, so they'll basically go onto into a community, steal all the cows. They'll go in with guns and violence, and steal the cows by force. They're kind of, in Kenya.
Then they go and sell them elsewhere.
Yeah,
yeah.
In Kenya, particularly in the Maasai, Samburu, and some of the other like northern tribes, they, cattle are like the bank account basically. Interest rate is your birth rate, and it's actually pretty functional system functioned longer than actual like Western banks have. So the bandits are essentially like bank robbers, really, and because it's such a huge area, the security falls to the rangers rather than the police, and the rangers work with the police. But in terms of like actual people on the ground dealing, like facing with the problem, banditry is the major thing for them. So we wanted to film with the bandits, with like the criminal organization, and for that it took us quite a long time to track down a group that were willing to talk to us, and then we were like in the middle of nowhere trekking, like we had we did everything right in terms of making sure that there were people in the know who could embassy people and stuff who could come and get us back if we needed to and things. But we were essentially trekking into the middle of nowhere to go visit some criminals, and that we didn't know how long we were going to be there. We didn't know whether they were going to rob us or not. We had we were with their kind of boss and had like the right permissions and access and stuff in place. But when you're dealing with criminal organizations, you still never really know what they're going to do. So like that kind of situation, we were just sort of prepared for everything. But there was like a police operation going on around the area. We had to just like trek into the middle of nowhere, meet them in a clearing. It was interesting. So that's one of the scenes of the film as well. And one of the kind of special things about the film is that we've got both sides of that conflict. And one of the rangers who we were filming with was killed in a bandit ambush. And
no.
in this ambush, 5 of the 6 rangers in the team were hit. And they were ambushed from 2 meters away. From
2 meters?
Yeah, with AKs.
Oh my, you're not surviving that. And the 6th one survived?
Yeah. All the shots were in the legs because they were so close that the bandits were lying down and they brassed up their legs.
Oh my God.
I mean, that puts into perspective like how close they were.
Oh my God.
And they managed to, the Rangers managed to get all the casualties out. The only person that was unhurt was the driver who was with the vehicle, and he just saw this like ambush go off in front of him. I've absolutely no idea how they managed to get out of it.
Oh my God. That is frightening.
Yeah.
That is
So
frightening.
one of Johnson Saru was killed in that, and we filmed the funeral and everything, and that kind of brings it home. Like what they're, they have an amazing job where they're following rhinos around and doing all this stuff, but it's, the reason you can go to Kenya and have a really amazing safe safari is because they're putting their lives on the line constantly.
I don't think people realize that that's what they do.
Yeah.
I think people think, oh yeah, rangers, they just go and they patrol around animals and they're a deterrent.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. But the people who want to get the rhinos don't give a damn.
No.
They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
If they're willing to do that, they're, and it's also Africa, and the value of life in Africa, the way people value the value of life out there, people's lives is much less than the West. People are much quicker to hurt or kill people over there, resort to violence to get what they want, as opposed to the West, because it's harder living out there. Is the crux of it,
Yeah, it's. I mean, for a lot of the people that are doing this, they're kids, or not. They're, I don't know, 16 to 22. They're young men. They've got a warrior mentality. They believe that the cows are their tribe's right. They believe and this is on both sides, on the Maasai side and the Samburu side, and all the Turkana, Pukot, all the different tribes. They all believe that they're doing it for their community. Just depends on which community they're fighting with who, and it's been going on for thousands of years. 3,000 years probably. So
what, the anti-poaching?
no, the the banditry, the kind of cattle theft backwards and
Yeah,
forwards.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just now, what was a fight with like clubs and spears is now with AKs and
Mm.
G3s and fouls. So
Oh my
yeah,
god, it doesn't help. I was just thinking with the conservation of the rhinos, and their dwindling numbers, and now it sounds like they're increasing. Doesn't help with that really lengthy gestation period, does it? Does
no,
not help at all.
no,
Like, make the reproducing a bit quicker, guys. Come on,
yeah.
and girls, guys and girls. Yeah, it doesn't help at all. My goodness. Have you? Did you? Would you recommend? I know that there's people, ex-mil British ex-mil, go out there and do a lot with the poachers, training and getting involved as well. Would you advocate for people to do that?
I think there's certain people who make a massive difference. Won't name names, but like, people who have spent a whole career basically in Hereford doing that kind of, working with teams on the ground, training specialist units. They're um, they're amazing. And there's people like in intelligence and signals who have like expertise in setting up kind of networks and intelligence networks and stuff. That's useful. But I think so much of what the rangers do is about like understanding the animals, tracking, understanding the community, like being involved in the community. It's not a soldier's fight. It's a community policing job. Um, and ultimately, I think, there's certain places where it's tripped over into being like, a war. But as soon as that happens, you're not winning favor with anyone. And the way to stop poaching is by having the community 100% on side. And I think, Kenya doesn't need, uh, they don't need my help. They don't need the help of someone who's ex infantry. They've got it. They're doing a better job than we could do. Um, so I think if
I
you
thought
have,
that
if you,
British mill. Sorry to jump in. I thought that, wasn't there the British military involvement in anti-poaching and training poaching and rangers, was it in Kenya or was it elsewhere? It must have been Kenya.
yeah, so they did,
Was lauded as quite a success and very
yeah,
helpful, was it not?
yeah. I mean, training. So this is the thing. I think people, people who you definitely get this like group of people who want to go out and kill poachers, and that's not what it is. There's, you know, I think there's a lot of expertise in like the British military and Western militaries generally that is useful. So, medical discipline, weapons handling, um,
Common concealment.
yeah, or yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, all that sort of stuff is really useful. But in terms of like being on the ground, resilient, speaking to the community, I I think that like most of the rangers of Maasai, they do that better than we could. It's like, if you're going to be trekking through the mountains in Nepal, you're better off with a Gurkha than
Mm,
someone in the rifles. As good as the rifles are, the Gurkhas grew up there. They kind of, they understand the land and the people and everything better than someone that's like parachuting in.
mhm.
But in terms of, teaching those key skills, then that's definitely useful. And I think the British military, they would, it's like Nigeria, Botswana, Kenya, kind of being involved in quite a bit of anti-poaching stuff, and it's definitely really useful. But it's not like, strap on your plate carrier and get a weapon where the serial number's been scratched off and go shoot people in the trees. It's not that. It shouldn't ever be that. And as soon as it becomes that, things have gone wrong. And that's, I think, unfortunately, in bits of Africa, that's kind of what happened. Kenya, it's not that at all. Tanzania, it's not that. And Botswana is probably, I've not spent time with the rangers in Botswana, but with them, it's probably a cut above Kenya as well. But I think like the Kenya Wildlife Service is really ruling the world when it comes to preserving these
Why are they
megafauna
getting it
and
right
mega
compared to the other places which
herbivores.
aren't so much?
Sorry.
Why are they getting it right compared to other places which aren't so much? Why are they so good at it?
Um,
What's the difference?
so KWS is a pretty special organization. It's
KWS.
the Kenya Wildlife Service. So they were established to preserve Kenya's wild landscapes and wild animals. And it operates as a government organization as opposed to a conservation organization, and that gives it the same power the police and the government organizations do. So that's a pretty special organization in itself. So that's a big kickstart. The rangers and the community element of it is another major thing. There's a lot of community buy-in because a conservancy is a fenced off, very big but still fenced off piece of land, surrounded by communities. And if the communities are benefiting from that land and getting jobs and support from the tourism and stuff that happens on it, then they're going to want to preserve it, and that's happening. There's obviously people who think those conservation areas are owned by the wrong people and it's colonial and stuff like that. Our film purposely stays away from that because we wanted to celebrate kind of the Kenyan work and Kenyan success. And there's lots of films about colonialism and sort of post-colonial Africa, but we didn't want to talk about that. We wanted to talk about rangers and rhinos. So the community buy-in to the conservancies is the major thing, and kind of giving the community agency and access. I think the community getting access to the conservancies is something that hasn't happened as well as it should do, because obviously if you inspire kids, then they're the next generation of rangers and vets and police and conservationists. And that's just starting now, but I think it will get bigger and be more successful as it goes.
Mhm. What about the background of the bandits and the poachers themselves? So why? Obviously, we know they're doing it for money, but where are they from? What is the difference between them and the anti-poachers?
So the difference is much slimmer than people potentially would like to appreciate, I think, particularly with the bandits. Poaching, I'll get onto afterwards, but with the banditry, there's a very big warrior culture amongst the Maasai, Samburu, Turkana, Pokot. And as a young man, you leave home and you're not expected to come back until you've made a way to support the family. And that could be through lots of cows. So you can pay the dowry to get married because you need a lot of cows to get married. And cows are money, like cows are currency. So you need a lot of money to get married and pay your potential wife's family for the marriage. And fighting is a honourable way to earn that money, and that goes on both sides, from the rangers and from the bandits. Same philosophy is just whether you're pushed into this or pushed into that. It's a lot like radicalization anywhere, even with comparing like someone that joins ISIS and someone that joins the British military. You're one is committing atrocities in abhorrent ways, and one is doing what I think is pretty good work in lots of places.
So do you get
So you get pushed, and the rangers get pushed in one way and the bandits get pushed in a different way.
so are there, in the same way that there are tribes and communities and villages which are very very orientated towards protection, do you get tribes and communities and villages which are orientated towards banditry then?
Um, you do, but I don't think it's down to a kind of community direction. it's mainly down to education and access to conservancies and understanding, what benefit they gain from it. It's easy to look at, if you live in the middle of nature, it's easy to look at nature and think that, this will always exist. I need money right now. I'm going to kill the elephant that comes and steals my crops and sell the ivory, because then I've done two things. I've stopped my farm being destroyed by the elephant and I've made some money off the tusks. It's easy to fall into that trap. But when everybody does that, all of a sudden there's no elephants. And then because there's no elephants, there's no like movement of acacia seeds from one place to another, and then pretty quickly the biosphere collapses.
Yeah.
So it's easy when you're surrounded by nature to grow complacent of it. And as soon as there's education, then that people then change what they prioritize. And it's so I think and this is more on the kind of poaching side of things, it's just down to access to education, access to work. And Kenya has a crazy youth unemployment problem. It's like, I think 70% youth unemployed. And that's, so what are you going to do if you're a young man or, young boy and I'm talking specifically about men, because obviously, there's a very, genders are very there's certain things women do, certain things men do. There are women coming into ranger positions, but the guys that are armed are still just women in Kenya. It's becoming more and more 50-50 split, and the government are doing good work in that. But the way the kind of Maasai Samburu work is, women set up communities and look after the kids, men provide and fight, and that's how it is. And yeah, so if you're a young man, you can't get married because you don't have cows. You can't get cows or money because there's no work. Then eventually, if you want to get ahead, if you want a life, and the only thing available to you is either banditry by stealing cows that you believe are rightfully yours because that's how your kind of tribal sort of religious upbringing has been, then that's probably what you're going to drift towards. If there's a lot of other available opportunity through the conservancies and tourism or conservation organizations or education, then you end up, you have opportunities there. I'm kind of really getting into the weeds of it here, but
no, it makes
yeah.
it makes total sense. That's interesting to me because
Almost
I
put
was
myself to
trying
sleep there, but
when I asked the question about the communities and villages of those exist, which are all like bandits. The reason I asked that question because I was finding it hard to understand why people who do this out there are not ostracized from their communities.
yeah. Okay, so let me tell you about the bandits that we spoke to. We decided to keep their identities hidden in the community because we're not police. We're not there to enforce law. We're just there to document so that other people have the full information to decide what they believe in and what laws they should push for. So we didn't identify them, but the way they became bandits was through in this community there was a lack of police, and the chief was having a real problem with people stealing from their community, and so the chief set up community policing. And what that did, the government and the local police force gave the chief access to police weapons, And I don't know where these weapons came from, but there's a lot of weapons in Kenya that are not exactly documented or registered. So he got hold of weapons for his community police force, and they got into the hands of the young warrior men. And those men, their job was to then stop cattle theft from that community and recover cows from other communities. Then they're bandits, basically. So the community police force.
What do you mean recover cows?
So you're in a village, you have 100 cows. A rival village from a different tribe next door comes into your village, steals your cows. Now it's the community police job to go and get those cows back. That looks a lot like a banditry raid at that point. The rangers do it in a more formal way with police and investigation and finding out where they've gone and the routes and do it in a more formal way. But in this community policing way, it's just their word against this other village's word. And there's a lot of animosity and hatred because so many young men have been killed in these raids. So they hate each other. They obviously believe that every cow this village has was stolen from them. And the village who stole the cows in the first place believed that the village they stole the cows from stole all their cows. So then the cows just move backwards and forwards between different community policing banditry organizations, essentially. And then you throw into that politics and politicians who are trying to hide corruption, they're trying to hide all the money that they've got from corruption and bribes in herds of cows. And then they're willing to pay the community policing to protect their cows who are being stolen from a rival politician who's also paying for their community police force to protect their cows. And you've got yourself a banditry crisis. And no one knows whose cows are whose and who's right and who's wrong.
I take it there's no tagging. Cattle tagging, is there?
There is, but a lot of people don't. It's there's so little money.
It's how we combat it here in the UK. There's a reason.
Yeah,
sheep have tags and cows have tags is because, and I don't know if people are aware of that. Actually, people may not be aware of that who listen to this. Like I grew up at a farm, and cattle and sheep they're literally tagged.
Yeah,
because people will rob your cattle and your sheep otherwise because there's not nice people out there.
Yeah.
Well, that makes. I mean, when you explain it like that makes perfect sense, and you go, okay, I kind of get it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't solve the problem.
No,
just makes you understand it.
Yeah, it's one of those problems that I don't know the way out, or should there be a way out? Even I mean, it's not. I'm not the person to make that call. It's
choose something else as the currency.
Yeah, but Kenyans can have Kenya however they want Kenya, and if that's fighting, that's fighting, and if that's through changing, getting rid of old ways of life, that's that. It's not. I'm not here to judge or decide. I'm just here to film.
How long did you live there for?
4 years.
How many? 4.
4 years.
4 years. And did you lived in Africa before that?
No, no. So I filmed in Nigeria, Senegal, Morocco, Kenya a few times, Mozambique, Tanzania. So I filmed in lots of parts of it. I really fell in love with Kenya, and I think a lot of people who go there do.
So compared to other countries in Africa you've been to,
yeah,
what's the difference? I've never been to Kenya. I've been to a couple of other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but not Kenya.
It's you know what? It's really interesting. There's this kind of thing that happens when you see the landscape in Kenya, and it's happened to loads of people I've had visit, like friends of mine. Happened to me, happened to my partner. Like as soon as we saw the landscape, you feel like it's where you belong in a strange kind of way. And it is like where we were living was pretty much the birthplace of humanity. Turkana, which is where the oldest human remains have been found, and kind of the true birthplace of humankind, it wasn't that far away.
I thought, what birthplace of Homo sapiens?
So what is Takana
I
Boy?
thought it was South Africa where we crawled out of the ocean and became humans. Homo erectus I thought was down there, and then Homo sapiens were a spin-off.
Um,
Spin-off. We're a
yeah.
spin-off.
So
That's what I thought.
so Takana Boy, which is the earliest nearly complete skeleton of Homo erectus, 1.5 million years ago in Turkana. So that's where we were living,
Yeah.
or we weren't living in Turkana. We were
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Meru and Laikipia, but Turkana is very close,
Mm-hmm.
and you do feel this like coming home sort of feeling when you see the landscape,
Mm,
particularly for some reason, you know, um, Laikipia and Samburu. It's so I yeah. So when I first went there, I kind of made a you know I knew I was going to live there at some point. I just completely fell in love with the place
really.
and did. And since I to be able to make the film freely, and the budget was way too small, but we managed to make it happen, and we made it happen by setting up a company in Kenya and stuff. And I saw a bit too much of the insides of the way politics works there, and I think I need a few years away from it. Um, but I'll go back. My partner, she joined me for the last couple of years out there. Yeah.
So you're back here, but you think you'll go back out there and live there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we have obviously now we've got a pretty good friend network there. There's people that I want to stay in touch with and see. And I think, as a place to live, it's pretty good. It's there's some like challenges. You need to be really good at driving off road. You need to be very good at fixing Land Rovers or Toyotas, depending on which way you lean. Um, and it's a very like back to basics way of life. Like you don't like you don't know whether lights are going to turn on. You don't know whether there's going to be water. You don't know whether there's going to be like some village upstream having a fight over water, and all of a sudden you have none. There's a lot of like challenges, but they're very like real challenges rather than you know Waitrose has run out of oat milk. What am I going to do? It's really kind of
There's something very special about sub-Saharan Africa in general, I think. And you spent much more time than I spent there. I spent a total of weeks there. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I spent up to a couple of months there in total, right, between South Africa, Mozambique, Uganda. Yeah, I think just those places. But there there is definitely, it's going to sound airy fairy people who haven't been, there is definitely, even South Africa, right, where you're in, in the city, whichever city you may be in, there is something in the air in that place, right, in that part of the world. And maybe that is like connection of the soul to the, like you said, the birthplace of humanity. I doubt that's it, but what I think it probably is all those things that inform, all of those sort of environmental stimuli that informed the way we evolved in our formative years as a species. Maybe it's that, and you experiencing those things again, from the temperature to the way the sun hits your face, to the way the ground is, to the noises and the sounds and the animals, and it's just incredible. It's like Africa is like my favorite place. If I could go anywhere repeatedly, if I could go there and live, I would do. Impractical at the moment. I don't think my partner would want it either. It's not the kind of place she would want to go and live, I'm pretty sure. But it is definitely somewhere, and especially my children, like, I am going to take you there to Africa. I'm going to show you this place, and you're going to find something uncomfortable because it's very, very different to the way the West is. But on the whole, you're going to be, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is incredible. My youngest wants to go and do a year there, volunteering between college and uni, you know.
Yeah. And
And
should
on the one hand, I'm
definitely.
like, oh my God, this can go a pear-shaped. On the other hand, I think, wow.
Yeah.
And then on the third aspect of it, I think, awesome, I get an excuse to go and visit. I get to
Yeah.
go to Africa and visit wherever she ends up going. There's definitely something about the place. It's just unbelievable. I would suggest everyone in their lifetime needs to go and visit there. Sub-Saharan Africa, go there, and if you can, get into the sticks, get out into the jungle, or at the very least, get outside the city or the town where you're staying. You know, get into the cultures and the people who are not connected with Western ways and technology. And
Yeah.
you kind of experiences which absolutely change your perception and the way you perceive life and the way things carry on. You know,
Yeah.
well, you will know this from being around some of the oldest tribes known to man out there, that it's a totally that way of life is still possible,
Yeah.
and getting satisfaction in life is much more possible the less reliance you have on other things in technology.
Yeah.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like some of the, I mean, right now, generally, I'm like on a scale of depressed to happy, I'm up there somewhere. But there's been, the times when I've been like kind of, so I mean, maybe this was just because I was alive, but like after the earthquake and avalanche on Everest, when I had no stuff, literally apart from the clothes on my back, and I was still walking around in high altitude boots because everything else was gone, I was pretty satisfied. I didn't feel like I needed more than what I had. I just had some clothes that I'd been climbing in for a couple of weeks, absolutely stank, and that was it. And a passport that was,
If people
and
only hear that
nothing.
story, I think it was episode 101 you came on, wasn't it? I think the
Yeah,
first time you came on was episode 101. I'm sure it was. I think you were the first interview in my studio when I got my own studio.
yeah,
Because obviously this
potentially.
isn't it.
Yeah,
I think it was 101. Yeah. So if people want to hear that avalanche story, go back to 101. Listen to that podcast with Tom. It's a great podcast. Sorry to jump in there. Go on.
no. But yeah, just I don't think you need that much stuff to make you happy, and if stuff won't make you happy, I mean,
No,
easy, easy.
we make we happy.
Yeah,
Actually, you said something on the icebreaker, which I wrote down. I wanted to come on to. If come on, I mean, you said that we were talking about your PTSD, and it was a question from one of the subscribers that got put to you, and you said that the fence that we I think you said the fence that constrain what do you say the fence that constrains us in terms of what makes us happy or not or content or not just exists within our head. Is that
yeah.
am I explain what you meant? Because I've just butchered what you said there. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah. I
Go on.
think let me just think of a way to say it that makes sense.
The reason I bring it up is
The,
I totally agree with it. I've mentioned similar to this in the past. So elaborate on it for me.
yeah, it's easy to feel kind of. I mean, so the question was about veteran suicide.
What
Basically.
advice would you give to someone who's considering suicide because of PTSD?
Yeah,
That was the question.
yeah, and I think the the way I look at suicide, and I'm sure there's people that are better, without making a dark joke, better qualified than me. The I think that comes from feeling trapped, and what I was basically saying is the constraint, the fence that we feel trapped in that could lead someone to do that ultimately very stupid and selfish thing, I'd argue, is feeling trapped. But that fence and that constraint and that, you know, that's constructed in our heads, and there's nothing to stop us removing that and going doing something different. You can, my I have a great relationship with my dad, but I think he was at a point close to suicide when he decided to sell everything, build a boat, which he basically constructed himself, and he sailed around the world twice. And that was, I
As you
think,
do.
yeah, I think that was him needing to get away from something, or feeling like he was trapped within his situation. And I think if you really do feel trapped to the point where you're going to, commit suicide, then go, what, at that point you're actually most liberated, because what have you got to lose? Just go and try something else, anything else, apart from committing crimes or hurting other people. But go and visit somewhere you would never go to before.
Yeah, yeah, I
I think,
wholeheartedly agree, which is why I
yeah,
wrote it down. It's yeah, you literally have it in your power to
yeah,
change your entire situation, right? And I mean, you like literally the situation you're sitting in, where you're sitting, standing, whatever, and or lying down, when you're in that really difficult place mentally. Uh, um, One of the problems is that your mind plays tricks on you, and especially when you get really dark.
mm,
I know I'm preaching to the converted here, and the situation you think you're presented with, which is a hopeless one and there's no way out, is completely false.
mm,
The reality is that your mind's brought these walls around you, these drawn these curtains around your sort of consciousness, and it doesn't allow you to see. You can't see solutions and options.
mm,
The billion options you've got to try and improve a situation, and changing your environment is start point number two, arguably number one, joint start point number one. Start point, the other start point number one you should do also is, you let someone know that you're not good. Stranger,
mm,
doctor, friend, whoever,
yeah,
it doesn't matter, anyone. But on the point you're making there, when I have what I learned through my own difficult times, is that if I am struggling, if I'm finding something hard mentally now, and really now, I'm very grateful now that that's just when I'm finding something hard mentally, it's usually just on a high stress. I've got something difficult, and I get like a brain fog anyway, but I can't, if I can't focus, or if something is, I get a lot of anxiety or something, or I got a lot of, I feel really down about something. All these things are quite rare now, but if they happen, my immediate action, my IA drill, as I call it, obviously military speak, my immediate action is I change my environment. Most of the time that's happening, if it's work related, or if it's podcast related, if I'm doing a lot of intense stuff, like recently been setting up the DAO, the HR Impact DAO, plug, the decentralized autonomous organization, HR. My God, that was a lot of work, intense work for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on top of my day job. When that would get on top of me, the first thing I would do is, or if I was trying to solve a problem, the first thing I would do is I would literally go for a walk. Boom, and I'd stop, and I realize this is getting on top of me. I am not handling this very well at the moment. So stop, change the situation. I walk out the door and I go for a walk. Depending on how long I want to give that, 5 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. And that changes my mental state immediately,
mm,
immediately, because I'm exposing myself to different stimuli. I'm not in that situation,
yeah,
literally physical situation, which I was stressed. I was emotionally stressed for whatever reason, which is basically what it is. I changed the situation, and through nothing else but changing my environment, which I decided to do, I changed my state of happiness.
yeah,
Which is what it is.
yeah,
Which is exactly what it is, and it's the same. It's exactly the same thing, the same impact when what you're talking about there. You are considering suicide. You need to change the situation you're in. And you, the only person that can do that, especially if you're in a position where you shut yourself off from people, you're not talking to people, you're staying at home, or
yeah,
you very little social interaction. You have the power to change all that by doing something different to what you're doing now. What's the definition of madness? You know, if we're continuing the same thing on and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And there's, like there's things you can do to change your, if you have a family or whatever, there's other things you can do to like get help from therapists, exercise, all the kind of usual stuff they say. But if you really are like at a point where you're gonna, you know, commit suicide, then that's the point where you tell someone and, you know, sell everything and walk the south coast or go to Vietnam, go to Thailand, Bali, like buy a boat, you know, whatever. If that's the kind of extreme, if you really are at that point where like you're actually going to do that, then try something else first.
yeah, yeah. You know, every
Yeah.
single person who has been on the brink of suicide or has attempted and failed, you know, and they are here, none of them regret it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Liz McConaughey. Do you know Liz McConaughey? Chinook crew chick.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Liz, been on the podcast a couple of times, and I'm not sure if you read Liz's story. Liz took an overdose, and very luckily, she got brought back to life. You know, in hospital. And Liz's 5-year anniversary, if you want to call it that, life anniversary, or I'm sure she's got a name for it, was, I think it was the day before yesterday. You know, so 5
Yeah.
years since she did take her own life, but was brought back, and you know, she's an amazing person.
Mm.
She's achieved so much since that event, you know, and the point I'm trying to make is, I am quite certain that there's at least one or two people, at the very least, who listen to this at any given time, the podcast, who are really not good in a good place, you know. And if you're one of those people, then just take on board the advice that Tom has given you. You know, just change your environment, and by doing that, and it feels it is hard to do so because it involves a lot of the time involves swallowing your pride and admitting that you can't solve it yourself and you need third party help, uh, which is almost always the case if you're that dark in your mind, and maybe you've tried to seek help in the past and nothing's come of it. It's not been the right one. The reality is that there is so many different organizations and people out that can help you in ways of being helped. You've just got to keep trying to find the one that will help. Is the reality, and you absolutely won't regret it because life can be so rewarding. Look at yourself. You know, look how happy you are with everything you've achieved, and I know how bad things have been for you in the past. We spoke about in the first podcast. You know, there's all that opportunity to be happy and live a satisfying life. You don't get any of that if you're fucking dead. You don't get any
Yeah.
of it if you're fucking
Yeah.
dead. You know, you've got immense potential in you
Yeah.
to achieve things. Every person has, and the reality is that. And the reality is that I think that people who go through these difficult times and come out the other side, my God, they make some of the best human beings on the planet, the best human beings on the planet, because they can resonate with other people who've been through it and they can guide them out of it.
Yeah.
You know, is the truth. You're not a benefit. You're not. You can't contribute anything to the world if you're not here, and everything's got something to contribute. You just about deciding whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
You know, and you should want to. I would hope. My God. Yeah. How do we get into that? Oh yeah, the ring fence. Yeah, it's perspective. It's all perspective in your head.
Yeah.
That fence around you. It's just the perspective. Yeah. Your the viewpoint you're at, change your viewpoint. Anyway, I think I've made my point on that one. I've got a couple of questions here in the chat from Coke.
Yep.
All right, so he said okay, his first question was, is there any justification for poaching? Do you sympathise with any of them? But yeah, I think you've answered that in talking through the reasons. I was surprised at the reasons actually, because I was sitting here listening to you thinking, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, I definitely sympathise. I obviously don't empathise, and I think, it's all perspective. The person at the top, I don't care about that person. I don't have much time for them or sympathy for them, because they don't need it. The person at the bottom who actually is given the weapon and sent into the conservancy to go and shoot a rhino or an elephant or whatever, I they 9 times in 10 are in a really, really desperate situation. The middlemen and the people at the top, they deserve to go to prison. The people who are the kind of, um, the ones who are actually on the ground doing it are almost always in a desperate situation and don't see a way out. And they think that by getting cash, that's their way out. And in a place like Kenya or Mozambique, when there isn't much hope for hope for employment, and kind of the it's, it's very difficult to have a life if you don't have employment, then it can be tempting.
Mm-hmm.
Is the
Makes sense. Okay, in no particular order, other questions.
Yeah.
Would you do a film? Would you do a film on war crimes by the British military?
No. No.
Yeah, I'm
I,
sorry. Has the RAF regiment ever had any issues with war crimes in Iraq or Afghanistan?
there was
There was in Iraq, was it not?
so there were photos after the Battle of Bastion with a couple of guys posing with a body, but I think that's kind of it. And
Yeah.
that's something that would happen
Man,
with the police, probably.
I don't have any massive issues with that.
No, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of war crimes, it's about as low as is about as insignificant as you can.
Trophy, right? My God, not really. No, okay. I tried to mean
Moving
trophy like
moving
taking
on.
things. No, I didn't mean that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that's, as far as I can remember, I think
Yeah.
that's it. I might be wrong.
Do you think the media is fair when reporting on wrongdoings by the UK military? This is Koga asking all these questions, by the way. You can
Yeah.
blame him, not me.
So I mean, obviously, there's the recent stuff with the Tutu guys, the SAS in Afghanistan. I had nothing to do with special forces apart from like the occasional kind of medic that would be on the MERT team. Or, if we were doing force protection of Chinooks, we'd very occasionally pick up casualties, not casualties, like, well, yeah, casualties, but also like prisoners from raids and things. So a very limited experience of what they were doing. But I think, you do, if you're bringing special forces into something, the whole point is that they work in different ways. So I don't think people should be particularly surprised. I think obviously they should hold the highest standards of what Britain is, and I think if you're if you're in one of those units doing one of those things, then you're literally representing the country and the ideals and the beliefs and the things that we're all fighting for, and so you should be on the right side of that. But I never saw anything when I was there being conducted by anyone I was with on the British or American side that I had any issue with at all. Bullying within the forces was a problem, but in terms of like actually committing crimes, then no, I certainly didn't see anything. I think a lot of it is also like, I spoke to a guy who was fairly close to that, and all of their operations were very intelligence led. They knew who everyone was. They had a network of people who were telling them who these people were and what was going to happen next. And so they were operating, operating under different rules, because, you know, a car bomb that looks like a car, it's very difficult to say as a definite immediate threat from just looking at it. But if you know who the person is and your intelligence person is telling you that that car has been rigged to go and it's going to drive towards Fob Wishton in an hour's time, and you're in a helicopter and you've got the opportunity to stop it, then that isn't the rules of engagement the normal infantry would follow, but it's not necessarily outside of the realms of what's right or wrong in that situation. I think, if you look at like what Israel's doing right now, that's very different. If you're blowing up a tent of 5 journalists because you suspect one of them has a link with Hamas, is I don't really know how you can justify that. Or all the kids or hospitals or anything else to that matter.
How dare you? How dare you?
I know, but yeah. But yeah, I think if you're, I don't even know what the question was or what it was. I've drifted.
But you answered it. Next question.
That was mission creep there.
Do you think UK civilians appreciate the privileges they have compared to less developed places like Kenya?
I think the majority do, and I think the ones that don't have a right to not, because that's what the country is, and that's what we should be proud of achieving.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it hard, again from Coke, do you find it hard not to develop, is it hard not to develop a negative mindset when you're filming a lot of negative things, a lot of suffering?
Oh,
Especially when the conservation is concerned. Obviously, the black rhino birth is incredibly motivational, right? But
yeah.
what about the other things? How do you stay away from being completely
Look,
demoralized by it?
it's that is tricky. It's the same as like, as a journalist, I was covering the migration crisis in Syria, in Iraq and stuff like that, and you kind of, you see very unnecessary wars and human suffering because of stupidity and you know a want of power from a small number of people. Um, and it's difficult to not completely lose your faith in everything. Conservation is a more extreme example of that. I think, like, I'm watching, every time I travel, you see bits of nature disappearing, and there's great work being done. But I don't think we value nature. I don't think we understand. Like, one of the big things I think that's going to be next in the kind of conservation space is nature as infrastructure. Roads allow us to do a certain thing. Bees allow us to eat. You know, like, it's pointless having a road if you can't, if there's nothing to transport on it. And nature is infrastructure. It deserves to be looked after, maintained, built, and none of us will exist if we don't have nature. And when you see bits of it being chopped away and greed and corruption and things like that, it is, especially in a place like Kenya that I love, but I don't really have any right to, be involved in it from a political perspective or even advising or anything like that. It's not, that's not my place. But it is quite depressing when you see such an amazing place not being looked after in a way. And you know it's, as a country, Kenya's doing an absolutely incredible job, but there's a few corrupt people who will just sell off bits or
Mm.
take a backhand at the expense of something for a quick gain. And that is kind of depressing, but I don't know, enjoy it while it's here.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Last question. It's a bit of a funny one, but I will. It's not, but I'll reword it anyway. Okay, from Coke. Well, I'm not gonna, I'll say what he wrote. What advice would you give Hugh about getting into filmmaking? presumably not crashing a drone into water would be step one. Now, some context on this. I purchased a drone, little DJI Neo thing, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe 6 months, 9 months ago. I recently was out filming while I was paddleboarding with a couple of people, and the drone, it basically decided to emergency land straight into the canal. Yeah. Lost all the, yeah, it's just, but it wasn't that simple. Like I was flying it when the battery was low. I shouldn't have done it. I didn't know what it would do when the battery got to a certain critical point.
And you
It
found out.
obviously emergency landed as opposed to I thought I had about a minute to get it back. The emergency land protocol was to emergency land where it last took off from, which was off my paddleboard 20 meters back down the canal. So I went back to that point. So I was trying to get back there to get it to catch it in my hand. Didn't dive off the board to get the drone out of the water. I also had my phone in my hand. All these things that you're doing on water not advisable. And it's like, my God, the phone survived, but the drone did not. Nor did all the great footage I got of the paddleboarding beforehand. So, but to rephrase the question, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into filmmaking? Let's assume they're ex-military.
It's
They're not sure what they want to do. They think, I
Yeah.
like the sound of what Tom does. I want to start doing that.
I think, yeah, I feel very lucky in my, my trajectory through my film career has had like some really lucky breaks that I've kind of been prepared for and have been able to like capitalize
Exploit,
on.
yeah.
But exploit. But they've ultimately been lucky breaks, and I think that's probably true of many other.
Yeah, but you've got to be doing it to get lucky bricks. You've got to be going at it. You've got to, it's
Yeah.
like, you're sort of doing yourself a disservice there.
So
If you don't try,
and
don't put yourself in the position to be able to capitalize on the bricks. When they come,
Yeah.
you're not going to do anything.
so
Get
that's kind of where I'd
You got to be in it
start,
to
is
win it.
like,
That's the
yeah,
phrase, isn't
exactly.
it?
And I think now filmmaking is more accessible than it's ever been. You can do a pretty good job with a phone. YouTube is like basically a TV channel, and if 5 people watch your film on YouTube, then like that's 5 more than someone who never made a film. I think you can get go on mass, like when I wanted to go into documentary properly, I watched the Werner Herzog masterclass on the, it's called, I think the website's called Masterclass, but Werner Herzog does a like how to filmmaking basically, and you it's amazing. So I think with it being so accessible and with like very cheap ways of getting a really like pretty high end education, then world's your oyster. Just give it a go. If you love it, then you'll get better at it and you'll apply yourself and you'll become very good. If you hate it, then you've not wasted that much.
Yeah, no, that's good
And if you
advice.
love it to the point where you're spending your whole life and thousands on equipment and you're getting success and traction and people are watching, and great, you've at that point I think you've made it.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay. When is the Black Rhino film
So
going to be
we
out?
so we're waiting for specific dates, but I think premiere will be first week of October, goes into cinemas in October. I'll extend an invitation to premiere to you.
Thank you very much.
I don't know when.
I was hoping that would happen.
Yeah, I don't know where or when, but it'll be, I think it will be around like the 6th, 7th of October. There's a window between me getting back from a festival. We've been nominated for a few awards, so I'll get back from a festival on the 4th.
Well, it's the documentary.
Yeah.
It's been nominated for a few awards.
Yeah.
Of course it has.
We won.
Of course it has, Mr. Martienssen.
We won one for best sound, which James
Shout out to James May.
Yeah. He should come on here as well, actually.
Get him on.
Yeah.
If he'd be up for it, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so we won best sound in one thing. We're nominated for best editing in Wild Screen, which is I think November, and then Jackson Wild, which is very prestigious. Wild Screen's super prestigious. Jackson Wild is also very prestigious, on par with Wild Screen probably. And we've won. Oh, we're nominated for best conservation film, and got a nomination for best Guardian film.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's narrated by Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's random to be narrating that, is it not?
I mean,
Why Tom Hardy?
I mean, it's like the silky tones of one of the best actors of all time.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
No, we had a sort of slightly odd military connection through to a very close friend of his. So he knew about the project really early on. And then when it came to the time, I just got in touch with his agent and said Tom had been interested in this before. Is he still interested? We would bend over backwards and pay whatever he wants for him to be the narrator. And he agreed. We recorded it at his house. It was, awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, mate, all those nominations are incredible, and I hope you win most, if not all of them.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking great. So, okay, so on that then, how can people keep a track of what you were doing, what you and your team are producing, and the news and events, whatever?
So James is now our social media manager. He's pretty dark horse, is James, when it comes to that. So there's an Instagram page called at Rhino the movie.
Rhino the movie.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that you got that title. Okay, right,
yeah. And the film is called Rhino.
There's got to be a Disney spin-off, surely.
I hope so. Yeah.
Rhino the movie.
Yeah. So that's the Instagram page. Everything will be on there, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But what about your production company?
Dustoff.
Dustoff.
Yeah. So that social media is managed by me, which means it's not very good. I haven't put anything up for a while.
Okay.
And I should, if there's anyone.
Rhino the movie is the place to go.
Yeah.
And Dustoff Films, and you follow Dustoff Films and just hang around and wait for Tom to pull his finger out and post some stuff. He's busy making award-winning films.
Yeah. I mean, my Instagram is like more active.
Yours is, yeah.
Yeah. I figured with Dustoff, like it needs like actual proper effort and conviction. And I've just been so busy. Like I was the only, I mean, Cassandra, the editor, she's incredible. And James, we produced it together, but Cassandra has a full-time job. James has a family and a full-time job, which means that when it came to delivering the film and doing the kind of like the legal stuff and the financial stuff, it all fell on my shoulders. So I just haven't had time to keep things up to date. But hopefully, the next things should be with a bigger company. News on that hopefully very soon, and that will relieve that pressure, which will mean I'd actually have time to put effort into social media and other stuff that I should be better at, but I'm actually completely useless.
You can't be the best at everything, can you?
No.
It's been a pleasure, mate. It's been a real pleasure. I'm really glad that we got to chat in, and now that you're back in Blighty, whenever you want to get in, mate, just get in and we'll talk about your next project, and maybe get you back in later this year or early next year to see the aftermath of Rhino the movie's release.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Okay.
And talk about all the accolades you're going to win.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with everything, mate, and thank you again.
Cheers.